Think your honesty is helping? Sometimes it's hurting. Leadership is full of well-intentioned critique that has unintended consequences. Welcome back to Data Wizardry. Today we're exploring critical, the reactive tendency that can make or break influence. I'm Joseph Leman. Come along as we put the data on critical in layman's terms. From a psychometric perspective, critical exhibits very strong positive correlations with both autocratic and arrogance at 0.84 and 0.85 respectively within the LCP dataset. These coefficients indicate a near concurrent manifestation of traits. Leaders high in critical are statistically very likely to also score high in autocratic and arrogance. The relationships are robust enough to suggest that critical rarely operates in isolation, and modeling leadership behaviors without considering these covariates risks significant under-specification. Functionally, even well-intended critique may be perceived as dominance or dismissiveness, reducing its efficacy in collaborative contexts. So, in plain language, critical doesn't travel alone. If someone scores high in critical, people are very likely to also see them as autocratic and arrogant. That matters because even well-intentioned feedback can land poorly when delivered by a seemingly pompous jerk. What you think of as helpful critique may actually come across as controlling or dismissive, and when that happens, collaboration breaks down. The very improvements that you had hoped to spark get lost in the reaction to how your message feels. Turns out, managing critical includes a healthy dose of empathy, an understanding, or at least imagining, how others experience your criticism. More often than not, the experience comes with a little extra baggage. When we look at the data across organizational levels, critical scores increase consistently as roles get more senior. This is particularly noticeable for those in or aspiring to the C-suite. Our CEO study revealed that critical is one of just 3 reactive tendencies appearing in the top 10 traits and behaviors most frequently observed in the world's most effective leaders. With roughly an 8-point jump between lower-level managers and CEOs, the trend line is clear. The higher the position, the higher the likelihood of being seen as critical. So from a data perspective, that suggests a meaningful correlation between hierarchical level and perceived critical behavior. Let's step back for a second. Now, you'd hope that the most effective leaders, the ones advancing to the top, would show fewer reactive tendencies, not more. Now, in theory, as you grow as a leader, you get better at managing those impulses. So why would critical appear so frequently amongst CEOs? Maybe it's perception. People expect those at the top to be tougher, more exacting, more critical by nature. Or maybe it's the role itself, the pressure, the scrutiny, the constant decision-making could bring out more critical behaviors. We can't know for sure from the data, but what we can say is that as you rise in an organization, you need to be mindful of how critical may show up in your leadership. The higher you go, the more every word, tone, and reaction gets amplified. Looking at hundreds of thousands of profiles, critical exhibits one of the largest self-other discrepancies of any of the 29 dimensions of the LCP with a Cohen's D of 0.56. Statistically speaking, that's a medium to large effect size, meaning that the standardized mean difference between self-ratings and aggregated evaluator ratings is more than a standard deviation. In other words, the self-other divergence on critical is not only reliable, but practically significant in scale. Leaders tend to systematically underestimate their own degree of criticality relative to how others experience them, an indication of both perceptual bias and signal distortion in upward feedback loops. Word out moment, what is Cohen's D? Let's talk about the Cohen's D that I just mentioned. So statistical significance tells us if a result is just due to chance alone or not, but it doesn't tell us how much it is and how much that might matter. And that's where Cohen came in. So David Cohen created a way to quantify the magnitude of a difference between two groups in a standardized way. Think of it like this. Imagine two sets of people, one group taking aspirin every day and one not. Now, Statistical significance might show you a difference between lifespan for each group, but Cohen's D will tell you how big that difference actually is. Is it small? Is it medium? Or is it a large difference? In our case, a Cohen's D of 0.56 for critical is considered a medium to large effect, meaning the difference between how leaders see themselves and how others see them is both reliable and substantial. In practical terms, it's not just a tiny quirk, it's a meaningful gap. And that matters because in leadership, it's not about whether you think you're critical, it's about whether others experience you that way. And that perception gap can have a real impact on your effectiveness. Okay, nerd out. Put simply, we're just not as good at spotting our own critical behavior as we think. Which makes sense. Nobody wants to see themselves as overly critical. We usually think we're being helpful or precise, maybe even that we're teaching someone something new. But others may experience that same behavior as judgment or negativity. It's a lot like being funny. It doesn't matter how hilarious you think you are, what counts is whether other people are laughing. And critical works the same way. What matters isn't your intent, it's your impact. And when other people see you as more critical than you see yourself, that gap tells you there's work to do. Here's the final word on critical. It's powerful, and if you're not careful, it can undermine your leadership fast. It can help leaders identify areas for improvement, push for higher standards, and keep teams on track. But if it runs unchecked, or if your perception doesn't match how others experience you, it can shut down collaboration, create resentment, and erode trust. Leaders often underestimate how critical they come across, and that gap can quietly sabotage impact. Those who do it best stay aware, calibrate their critique, and manage the balance between intention and impact. Push too hard or miss the gap, and the team pays the price. Handle it well, and critical can help leaders and their teams grow, improve, and perform at their best. And that's the data in layman's terms. I'm Joseph Leman. Join me next time as we dive into courageous authenticity.